Welcome to Sisters of the Shadows, where mystery meets meaning. Together, we'll explore stories that spark curiosity and connection. Step into the circle, the shadows await.
Welcome back, Sisters of the Shadows family. Tonight we're diving into something a little different. Two creatures, two completely different worlds. One born from the internet, one rooted in living culture that still treats it with absolute seriousness. We're talking about the Rake, a modern digital monster created through creepypasta, and skinwalker beings from Navajo traditions that are not cryptid, not myth, and not entertainment. These two get compared online all the time, but they couldn't be more different. One is a creature of collective imagination, while the other is a spiritual warning. So, tonight we're breaking down both respectfully and carefully and exploring why each one terrifies people in completely different ways.
So let's start with the rake. It is a creature that didn't come from ancient folklore, but from the early internet. Mid 2000s creepypasta forums, anonymous posts, grainy sightings, and those eerie journal style entries people used to share. The rake is described as this pale, hairless, humanoid figure with long limbs, sharp claws, and a posture that's almost animalistic. It's not quite human, but not quite monster either, which is exactly why it hits that uncanny valley fear. And a creepy fact for y'all, people often report waking up to see it crouched at the foot of their bed, just watching, not attacking, not speaking, just studying them. Can you even imagine?
That would be scary to
Right.
wake up to that, especially when it's dark out.
Right.
And that's the thing. The wreck doesn't chase, it waits. It doesn't explain itself, it just watches. And because it has no official origin story, no rules, no weakness, your imagination fills in the blanks. It's wild because the wreck feels believable in a modern way. Like it fits into our world, bedrooms, doorways, tree lines. It shows up in places we already feel vulnerable.
And I wanted to touch on the way that it's spent online really helps make it feel real. People use formats we already trust, such as forum posts, found footage posts, and fake police reports. Even if you knew it was fiction, the consistency of these stories makes your brain go, okay, but what if?
So, why the rake works as modern horror is because it was created in the internet age. It uses storytelling formats that people already trusted. It taps into the fears of being watched, being vulnerable while sleeping, and sometimes in your home, and something that shouldn't be in your home. It has no rules, which makes it adaptable to any setting. So if you had to pick one thing about the rake that makes it so unsettling, what would it be?
I feel like for me, it's just watching you. It's not saying anything, it's not doing anything. And at the foot of your bed, that is the most unsettling part for me because we've all had those nightmares. That's what you see, and that's the creepiest part to me is just that it's just there and it's not doing anything.
Yeah, I would have said it's just staring at you and it's not doing anything, just staring at you. And me, it's like how I would think if I turned my head just for a second, where would it be? What would it be doing? Would it still be looking at me?
And when you're asleep, you're at your most vulnerable. I still have thoughts like if my leg is out from under the blankets, I still think, what if something grabs me? It's just kind of inherent.
Right. I think it's really unsettling, especially for me, is the sleep aspect. If I'm asleep and I feel like something's watching me or I see something in the dark, like that's it for me. I'm up for the rest of the night. But do you guys think that the lack of backstory makes it scarier?
Definitely. I think it does.
Yeah, because we don't know much about the rake. And I think that's one of my biggest fears. I don't know much about this thing. It's just internet horror. I need to know more. I need to read more on this.
And the fear of the unknown is really creepy. And at least for me in this situation, from the just couple points we've touched on, I'm already creeped out without the backstory. I think the vulnerability that's included here, because it's in your home, it's in your private space, in your room, in your bed while you're sleeping, that just makes it creepy without any backstory.
Oh, shifting to something completely different. Skinwalkers come from Navajo tradition and they're considered real spiritual threats, not cryptids, not horror characters, not entertainment. A skinwalker is said to be a human witch who chose to break scary laws in exchange for dark power. This is a living belief system, and these stories are traditionally shared only in serious or warning contexts.
And that right there is the biggest difference between these two. The rake is digital folklore. Skinwalkers are cultural and they're tied to real spiritual teachings and boundaries. And I feel like that just adds an extra touch to this creepy story.
And the traits of a skinwalker. They can shapeshift into animals like wolves, coyotes, dogs, owls, which I did not know about the owl. But the forms are never quite right. They mimic human voices, they move unnaturally, they create intense feelings of being watched or targeted. They rely on psychological terror and not physical attacks. Creepy fact: many people report hearing someone they know calling their name, only to realize that person isn't anywhere nearby.
That's what makes them terrifying. They were once human and they understood human behavior and they know how to manipulate fear.
And that fear starts before you ever see anything. People describe an overwhelming sense of being watched or followed, like something is studying you from a distance. And next, I wanted to talk about some modern sightings. Modern skinwalker sightings usually come from the Southwest, from states like Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. These are remote desert areas, canyon lands, and places where the silence already feels really heavy. People describe animals behaving wrong, eyes glowing and reflecting unnaturally, voices calling their name, something moving just out of sight, and a feeling of being targeted. These stories are usually shared quietly and not for entertainment, but as warnings.
That's so crazy. And so, why do you guys think that people confuse skinwalkers with the internet monsters like the rape?
That's a really good question. I guess these hyped up internet stories just get so much traction so quickly that people think more have been around longer than they have just because of the traction and notoriety that they get.
Right. And then too, I feel like how the rake just watches you too.
Yeah.
And skinwalkers also just stand still. They don't really chase. You- I guess that's probably why they get confused thinking they're the same.
Yeah, they're both pretty unknown entities that just are kind of there and filling some void. I see the similarities, but once you read into them more like we have, you can see the differences pretty profoundly.
Right.
Yes. Like you guys mentioned, they both create that intense feeling of being watched or targeted, but then they both also rely on the psychological terror, not necessarily the physical attack, which is probably why people are like, oh, they're in the same realm, they must be the same. But like Erica said, after going over the different traits, the different backgrounds, we got to really see that they are quite different. And the skinwalker has been around for eons longer than the rake has. So, which one do you think scares people more?
I would say the skinwalker.
I would agree with that, just for the matter of fact that it hasn't been around so much longer. Of course, these internet phenomena and monsters that come about are also scary. Skinwalkers have been around so much longer that it's just, I don't know, it feels more compelling and just more believable.
Right. And I also think like it can shape shift to different things and it can mimic people. I think that's scary to think. 'Cause what if you haven't talked or heard from like a family member or a friend and all of a sudden you hear them call your name?
So we talked a lot about how they were the same and why people think that they're similar, but let's break down the biggest differences for people so they know kind of if they didn't catch it in the background on why they are different.
Yes. So I'm gonna talk about the rake again. This was born online rather than being something traditional. There's no culture attached to it. There's no rules. It's purely digital folklore that came out of creepypasta. We've all been on there. We all know the kind of stuff that came out of there. It's just starkly different from the Skidwalkers.
Right. And let's talk about the skinwalkers. Come from Navajo tradition, represents moral and spiritual boundaries, still taken seriously today, not meant for entertainment.
So here's a fun but unsettling detail. Both creatures, despite coming from totally different worlds, share one core behavior. They watch, they study, they observe, they wait, and humans are terrified of being seen by something we just don't understand.
And that really hits me. I am terrified of anything I don't really understand, and I strive to understand it, but sometimes you just can't. And that's truly terrifying to me.
That is terrifying. Like you don't understand it, and you trying to understand, but you still can't. Like no. Mm-mm.
Exactly. And I think we're ready to go through some final thoughts, ladies. For me, The Rake shows how powerful collective storytelling can be. We basically created Monster together. And I think this is becoming way more prevalent just with every year that social media becomes so much more powerful. It is a powerful storytelling tool. And when something gets started, it blows up fast these days. Let's be real.
That is true. And skinwalkers remind us that some stories aren't ours to play with. They carry cultural weight. And I agree with that. People still to this day say that they see sightings of skinwalkers. It's like you hear something new on the internet every day.
So for me, they both tap into the same primal fear, the unknown watching from the dark. And that really sits with me because that's one of my biggest fears. And I think a lot of people have those fears. So thank you for joining us for episode 7 of Sisters of the Shadows. And tonight we explored two different creatures, one born from the internet and one rooted in the living tradition, and how each one reflects a different kind of fear. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, share, and send us your thoughts. And remember, some stories are meant to entertain, some are meant to warn, and some stay with us long after the lights go out.
You've been listening to Sisters of the Shadows. Share this episode, follow us on TikTok, X, and Instagram, and keep the light close until next time.